So good to see everybody here this morning. What a blessed week we've had. We've had Thanksgiving. Of course, a lot of you got to spend time with family and friends. Some of you are still celebrating. Some of you are still eating. And that's a good thing. But we're so thankful for this time we've had. I'm amazed at how everything went Wednesday in the food delivery. Lauren and Michael and Amanda did a fantastic job of stepping in and taking over this great work. That means at least another 20, 30 years we've got covered now. And so that's good. All I know is, they did a fantastic job, and everybody got fed, and it was 1,500. But it was really good. I was amazed at how quickly we got everything out and how joyful everybody was in doing the work that they were doing. It was just such a good thing. And again, I want to thank everybody who participated in that. Everybody, the only thing that was kind of stuck out in my mind was I just kept hearing Linda say over and over again, "I'm not in charge. I'm not in charge anymore." Someone would go, "I'm not in charge anymore." And she was kind of relishing that. People wouldn't even ask her. She'd just go up to them, "I'm not in charge anymore." So I don't know, So she was kind of getting into that Wednesday, but it was really good. And we thank everybody for their participation and being a part of that. And I know great things are coming. I've already had several people stop me on the street and just say, "Hey, thank you guys." But isn't it great when you can serve and do things like that? Yesterday I got to ring the bell at Walmart, and it was neat to be able to. We just basically blocked the door. You couldn't get in without paying, And I said, "There's a way to do this." But anyway, it worked out real good, and just all those different things. Spending time with family. We had 27 family members at our house for 4 days, and it was interesting. It was fun, but I was glad when they were gone. But no, it was good. We really had a good time, and just want to thank all of you. Today's a great day for another reason too. Lucille Hassler's here today. She hasn't been able to be with us in forever. And where are you, Lucille? Where is she? Sitting back there, she is. She hasn't been able to be here in about 10 years, and so we're just so thankful for her being with us. And she just looks so good. You look good, Lucille. Well, we're glad she's here. And we're thankful for all of our members. We have several that are sick. Need to keep them in your prayers. We're continuing our series on good news about grace. One of the things that I know about relationships is your relationship with Jesus is like any other relationship. It has to be maintained. No relationship ever stays the same. You're either growing closer to the Lord or you're drifting away. It's just that simple. You never just stand still. Someone says, "I'm not any different than I was 20 years ago." Oh, yes, you are. You're either closer to the Lord or you're further away from the Lord than you were. There's no, "Well, I'm just right where I am. I found a spot." I know a lot of people in the church who think, I just get to a certain point in my life, and there I am. I've kind of achieved. I've made it. I'm there. And now, I'm just going to sit back and, it's kind of like getting on an elevator. I'm just going to ride on up to heaven, and I'm going to ride the pew into heaven, and that's it. No, it isn't. I've heard people say, "Well, you know what? It's time to let somebody else take over and do the work." No, it isn't. The Lord has a retirement plan, but He didn't on this earth. And you need to understand we don't ever retire from the service of the Lord. But that's the way it is with relationships. You either maintain it or you just lose it. You don't just become a Christian and that's it. You're either having your heart grow warmer every day or it's growing colder every day. Now, we've all known Christians who no longer walk in the Lord. One time they were on fire. They were excited, but now they have fallen away. At one point, maybe they were fired up for the Lord, but today they're nowhere to be found. We all know the struggles, even in our own hearts, that we have in maintaining that relationship, stoking that fire for Jesus. The good news that God offers us, the grace, the good news about grace that we're going to be talking about today is the idea of restoring grace. When we blow it, when we walk away, when we stumble, when we fumble, God says, you know what? You can come back to me. As a matter of fact, Lamentations chapter 5 and verse 21 says this: Restore us, O Lord, and bring us back to you again. Give us back the joy that we once had. So let's do a couple of things this morning. First of all, I want us to look at something. I want us to look at the idea of what causes believers to fall away. You know, there are many reasons that you could come up with for backsliding in your service for the Lord. I'm going to look at some particular one in Mark chapter 14, the story of Peter. The Bible tells us about one of his disciples, the Apostle Peter. He denied Jesus on the night that Jesus was betrayed and arrested. 4 common causes of why people go away from God, fall away. The first one is, and Peter experienced this, is overconfidence. You know the story. Jesus has been in the upper room. He was with his 12 disciples. They were there. They were all together. Jesus tells them, let me tell you, someone will betray me. And the rest of you will forsake me. Peter speaks up as he often does. He puts his foot in his mouth as he often does. And he says, Lord, not me. Everybody else may deny you. Everybody else may leave you. But I am with you to the end. Even if it means me dying, I am there with you. I am going to stick with you, Jesus. I'm going to do that. And Jesus told him, the truth is, Peter, this very night you will betray me. You will deny me 3 times. Peter said, no way. Not even if I have to die with you. I will never deny you. And of course, we know he did. You know, we begin to think that we can handle everything on our own. That, you know, everybody else may fall, everybody else may stumble, everybody else might do something wrong, but I would never do that. We think we're so strong that that'll never happen to me. You think, you know, that somebody else is the one. You think that you are setting yourself up. Actually, what you are is setting yourself up for a fall. You know, the Bible teaches us that you need to be careful when you think, because let me tell you something, given the right situation, anybody in this room, any of you in this room is capable of doing just about anything. Never say never, because that's really the devil's cue to say, let me show you. So before you get real haughty and so self-confident and thinking, yeah, they did that, but I would never do that. Paul said it this way. 1 Corinthians 10:12. Therefore let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. In other words, don't get so overconfident. Don't get so confident to where, I don't need Bible class. I don't need to hang around with these brethren. I don't need to do this or that. I don't need the encouragement that comes with gathering together on the first day of the week and sharing the Lord's Supper together and singing the songs together and praying together and hearing a message together. You've not got that far. We need each other. We need Jesus. Peter got a little overconfident, and then he got lazy. Just simply got lazy. You know, that's another cause. You sort of see this in Peter's story. We get tired and sort of back off. You know, all those good habits that we used to do, like praying every day, like reading our Bible every day, like doing good works, being involved. You know, I used to teach Bible class. I used to be involved in this thing or that thing, reading the Bible. Maybe you don't have time for that anymore. When that happens, it ought to be a warning light. When that happens, you might want to sit up and look up. Because the very next scene we see this happening to Peter. He just got tired. You remember Jesus took Peter and James and John into the garden, and he told him, I need you to do something for me. I'm going to go over here, but I need you to sit here and I need you to pray. I need you to look for me. I need you to stay here and watch with me. Jesus is soon going to go to the cross. Watch with me and pray. What'd they do? They went to sleep. Then he returns and he finds the apostles asleep, and he says to Peter, Simon, are you asleep? Could you not even watch with me for 1 hour? Keep watch and pray so that you will not give in to temptation. For the spirit is willing, but the body is weak. There's a principle here we need to apply. When you get tired, you're setting yourself up for a fall. When you get overly tired, you're setting yourself up for major temptations. Fatigue lowers your defense and it makes you vulnerable to the devil. You have to know when you recharge yourself, there's a time when you need to recharge yourself physically and spiritually and emotionally. You need to stop and you need to start, just need some rest. One of my favorite stories is in 2 Kings chapter 18 and 19, you have the prophet goes up on Mount Carmel and destroys all those people. And man, he's doing great. He's high. He's doing wonderful things. The very next chapter, he's crawling in a hole saying, Lord, let me die. What happened? If you'll read that chapter, you'll know he just got tired. How did the Lord deal with it? Well, he told him to sleep. He slept 3 long sleeps. And then he'd sleep. He'd wake up. God had him a little meal prepared. He'd eat his meal, he'd go back and he took another nap. Woke up, ate again, took another nap. It wasn't until he got through all 3 of those naps that the Lord said, okay, now it's time for me to talk to you. You need to get up, you need to get out of the cave, and you need to serve. But while he was down, while he was tired, he was ready to give up. And a lot of us will do that. That's one of the reasons that a lot of people fall away. They just get overwhelmed by the work. Some of you quit doing things in the church because, maybe you thought you had to do it all and by yourself and you didn't let anybody get in there. And after a time, you just got so tired of it. And rather than taking some time off and getting yourself together, you just give up altogether and you quit. Then a third reason. The third cause of falling away is just fear of disapproval. We're worried about what other people will think. We walk with Christ, they're not going to accept you. They're going to make fun of you. They're going to ridicule you. As a matter of fact, in Mark chapter 15, verse 54, it says, Peter followed him at a distance. You remember after the garden, Jesus was arrested. They bring him up. Peter follows from a distance. He was too afraid to get close and personal with the Lord. That's after Jesus was arrested. Peter follows, but just far enough back that nobody would identify him with Jesus. He stayed just far enough back where no one would really know that he was a follower. You ever try to follow him at a distance? One of the signs that you can know that you're falling away is you start becoming ashamed of him, whether it's at school or at work or wherever. Jesus said in Mark chapter 8, if anyone is ashamed of me and my word, I will be ashamed of him before the holy angels and my Father in heaven. It's a serious thing to be embarrassed about Jesus. But a lot of people will fall away because they're just simply embarrassed to be associated with the church, associated with the Bible, associated with Jesus. Now, they're good when they get to church because we're all for you. But boy, you get them to work, no one. As a matter of fact, if they were to find out you're a Christian, they'd be shocked. If that's the case, you've probably fallen away. A fourth cause is convenience. We might want to have our faith, but we want to have it, we want to have a comfortable faith. It has to fit in our schedule. I'll follow Jesus as long as it doesn't cramp my style. I'm going to follow Jesus. Look what happened to Peter. It says that he followed Jesus at a distance, and then it says he sat down with the guards and warmed himself at the fire. That's an amazing scene to me. One of the 12, one of the original disciples, Jesus is about to be executed, and Peter is partying with the enemies. He's gathered around and warm, getting comfortable. He's sitting down with the crowd, warming by the enemies. I just want to enjoy life. I want to be warm and comfortable. I want to be accepted. I want to be part of the gang. I'll follow Jesus when it's convenient for me. A lot of us, we don't like the preacher to get down hard and heavy on us when he preaches. We don't want him to point out the sins in our lives. We don't want him to start calling us out and saying, what, I'm not doing enough, or I'm not involved enough, or I'm not doing these things. Listen, we want it convenient. We don't want to be uncomfortable. We want a mild-mannered preacher to preach mild-mannered sermons on being more mild-mannered. And that's not what the Lord intended. He called us out. But Peter wanted to be comfortable. It was somewhat of a pattern when people fall away from Jesus. When a person has been real active and they start falling away, the first thing that affects them is, you can see when the pattern starts coming, the first thing that hits them is their giving. Jesus said your giving indicates your heart. He said, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Giving is a good EKG on your heart. The second thing is we stop praying. The third thing is they stop attending. What happens to those people? Falling away. How does God respond? In the case of Peter, think about what was going on in Jesus' mind concerning Peter. I think this is a wonderful verse you need to put down in your Bible. Romans chapter 8 and verse 1. There is no condemnation to those who belong in Christ Jesus. Now, here's a question, second question for you. We know that people fall away all the time. We know they get into trouble. You and I may have been in that boat many times in our lives. It's not something that's just a one-time thing that happens. We often ebb and flow in our relationship with Jesus. We're good with Him. We're hot. We're on fire for Him. And then all of a sudden the flames start going down. We need to stoke the fire. But He says, my question is, why doesn't God just throw away believers when they sin? I'm going to give you some reasons. And it's all about the grace, the good news about grace that we've been talking about. First of all, we need to understand that God's love for us is unconditional. It's unconditional. God doesn't say, I love you if you're good. I love you if you're perfect or whatever. He doesn't say, I love you because, oh, you're such a good Bible class teacher. I love you because you're such a good worker in the church. I love you because He just says, I love you, period. Maybe some of us need to write this down. God will never stop loving me. God will never stop loving me because I am the recipient of His grace. Some of you need to know that. Some of you need to write that down. Some of you need to put it on a card, stick it on your mirror in the morning. God loves me, and He's never going to love me any more than He loves me right now. And He's never going to love me any less than He loves me right now. He doesn't love you because you're good. He loves you because of who you are and and it doesn't matter, you who are sinners in here. Some of you think, well, yeah, He may love these good people here in this church, but He don't love me. No, He loves you. So much that He gave His Son for you. And we need to understand that. Lamentations 3 and verse 22. God's compassion never ends. It is only His mercies that have kept us from complete destruction. Why doesn't He kill me? Why didn't He just take us out? Because His love never ends. And because my salvation is not based on my performance. Look here in Romans chapter 9 and verse 16. It doesn't depend on man's desire or effort, but on God's mercy. Now, we've been covering this in this series on grace and how the fact of the matter, the only way that you're going to get to heaven, not every single one of us in this audience, I don't care if it's an elder, a deacon, a Bible class teacher, or the preacher. The only way any of us are going to get to heaven is by the grace of God. That is it, period. Not because I've done some great thing. Not because I've been baptized into Jesus Christ and I came up a new creature. Not because I'm a member of the Lord's church. Not because I sing the songs or pray the prayers or take the Lord's Supper or any of those things. It's not because of any of that. It is only because of the grace of Christ that I'm going to be saved. Period. Period. And we need to understand it. That it's not based on my performance. I'm going to get there because of Him. Titus 3 and verse 5 says, He saved us not because of the good things we did, but because of His mercy. Third thing, because Jesus has already taken the punishment. The process of the cross has to do with my sins and yours. He took it all. He paid a price for you. The wages of sin is death, and He died for you. He took the punishment that you and I deserved. Now, what sins did He die for? All of them. All of them. The ones in your future that you don't even know about, He's already taken the punishment for them. That's why He cried on the cross, "It is finished." Because He, in other words, paid in full. It's done. Now let me sort of take a sidebar here on this. Somebody you may be thinking, okay, well, Jesus has already been punished for the sins that I'm going to commit and the sins that I've already committed. If He's already going to do that, if Jesus has already been punished for all the things that I'm going to do, then I could just live any way I want to. I could just continue to sin. What does He say in Romans 6 and verse 1? That His grace may abound. That's what they got the misconception of. And some people in the church may get that same thing. If you're thinking that way, then something's wrong with your conversion. There's something wrong with your intake of Christ and your understanding of His grace, because grace makes us want to do what is right because of what He's done. You know, the works that you do in the church is not to get His approval, but you do it because of what He's done. I do not work my soul to save that work He's already done, but I will work as any slave for the love of His dear Son. That's the way it works. And then we need to understand, because Jesus understands my weaknesses. He is sympathetic. He understands. He knows my frailties. He knows my faults. And one of the most beautiful truths you and I could ever learn is that God is patient with us, thank God. In the process that we're going on with Peter, did Jesus know what Peter would do? Sure He did. Was Jesus patient with Peter? Sure He was. Hebrews chapter 4 and verse 15 says this: This high priest of ours understands our weaknesses, for He faced all the same testings we do, yet He did not sin. Then we need to understand that He does this because God doesn't hold a grudge. Isn't that great? You know, because we do that a lot. We hold grudges sometimes. But God doesn't hold a grudge. He tells us in Psalm 103, verses 9 through 13, God will not constantly accuse us, nor remain angry forever. He has not punished us for all of our sins, nor does He deal with us as we deserve. He is like a father to His children, tender and compassionate to those who fear Him. To those who fear Him, to those that respect Him, to those who commit to Him, to those who are in His family. This is the benefit of being a believer. God doesn't hold a grudge towards me. So, the question comes then, what do I need to do when I sin? What do I need to do? What do I do when I sin? One word. Just one. Return. That's it. You turn your life over to Him at one time in your life. Now it's time to come back. Jeremiah 15:19 says this. This is how the Lord responds. If you return to me, I will restore you so that you can continue to serve me. He tells us in Isaiah 1 and verse 18, come, let us talk this over, says the Lord. No matter how deep the stain of your sin, I can take it out and make you as clean as freshly fallen snow. We lived in Russia for 5 years. We were in Moscow. At the time, it was the third largest city in the world. So you can imagine how many people. They would get out, from October to April, it snowed almost every day. One of the great things I loved about being there was, though, every morning, it was a dingy gray, the city was gray, the buildings were gray, the clouds were gray, everything was gray. It was a lot of people committed suicide because it was pretty dingy and everything. And by the end of the day, with the cars and the traffic and everything, the snow that had fallen would be all dirty and speckled and all this. And a lot of them owned pets. So there was a lot of yellow marks in the snow and all that kind of stuff. And it was a mess. Spring was really bad. But every morning there would be a fresh blanket of snow on the ground. Just seemed like every morning there was a fresh coat, and it was absolutely beautiful. And I like to think that's kind of the way the Lord does with me. Every day I start out, man, I'm doing good. I get up out of the bed. It doesn't take long though. The first spot comes. I mess up. I start. By the end of the day, it's pretty rough. But every morning I can get up renewed. Actually, I can be renewed every moment of every day, like freshly fallen snow. So let's consider a few questions. Was there ever a time in your life where you were closer to the Lord than you are right now? Think about that. Was there ever a time in your life when you were closer to the Lord than you are right now? If so, what happened? Have you allowed the slippage? What's happened? What got in the way? Has your relationship to Jesus gone stale? Or are you just heartlessly going through the motions when you come to church? I gotta go. I got to be there. I showed up, and I did all those kinds of things. But am I really doing what I need to do? Do I have that love for the Lord when someone comes up? I'm going to tell you, someone comes up to me and asks them to do something. They say, well, do I have to do that? My first response, no, you don't. You don't have to, you get to. And it's a privilege for someone to ask you to do anything for the Lord's body. But have you ever gotten to the point where, you just dread anything that you do for the service of the Lord or dread your even coming to services? I'm going to go. I'm going to get it over with. I need to be an example to my family. I need to be doing all these different things. If I don't go, somebody's going to call me or whatever it is. Then you maybe need to look at your relationship again. Has your relationship with Christ gone stale? Have you stopped caring about the salvation of the people around you? What is it you used to do, but you slacked off on? Have you somehow lost the joy of the Lord? Have you? Maybe you've done something and you think, He's just not going to take me back. It's just one step back. Just return. Now here's a happy ending. There's a happy ending to Peter's denial. If you'll go on and read the rest of the story, if there ever was a sin you'd think would be unforgivable, it might be denying the Lord 3 times the night that He was betrayed. When you were already warned that you're going to do that very same thing, you would think that would be the ultimate. Jesus said you're going to do it, and you said you wouldn't, and you wound up doing it anyway. He made it back. Jesus was waiting for him where He said He would be. In Luke's account of when Jesus predicted Peter's denial, listen to what Jesus said. In Luke chapter 22, 31 and 32. Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to have you, to sift you like wheat, but I have pleaded in prayer for you that your faith should not completely fail. So when you have repented and turned to me again, strength to build up your faith of your brothers. Isn't that interesting? Based on grace, there can be a happy ending for you too. The Bible tells us that Jesus is in heaven right now making intercessions on your behalf. You know, we think about Peter, he's praying for Peter. Peter, I'm praying for you that, the devil's wanting to sift you, and I'm praying that when it happens, when you fail, that you won't completely fail, but that you, what did he say? But when you have repented and turned to me again. Maybe Satan has been sifting you now for some time. Jesus is praying for you. He has already paid whatever for the price for whatever separated you from him. You just need to return. That's it. That is restoring grace. You've not gone too far for him to take you back. Maybe we can help you this morning. Maybe you're there today. Maybe you've slipped. Maybe you've fallen. Come back. That's what his grace will do. We can't fall too far that his grace won't reach out and bring us back. If we'll just do it. And if we could help you this morning, I want to encourage you as we stand.